Hello friends, it has been a minute since I've done a Q&A episode, and we're going to wrap up this year with a client Q&A episode where I've pulled recent questions that my clients have asked and I've coached them through. So we're going to be talking about eating before early morning training, hitting your macro targets versus the macro ranges, and also about getting bloated. So let's get into it. Okay, so first, just to give you an idea of how these questions get submitted and what it looks like. So every week they have a check-in where they give lots of qualitative data, but quantitative data, but also qualitative information, and in their questions as well. And so a lot of times I'm looking at the trends of the data and what we need to adjust. I'm reading through between the lines of what's going on and where they might need coaching or something in the actual implementation that they're missing, that it could be easier or a knowledge gap. But then sometimes I just get straight up questions, right? And so that is either in the check-ins or there's a handful of different ways where my clients connect with me and communicate with me and ask questions. And so as I was looking at the recent questions that I was getting and pulling out some for this podcast, I saw one that in the space in the check-in, it says hey, what questions do you have for me? And she wrote, none. I nailed my goal for this deficit. Today is the last day of my deficit and I am down 21.6 pounds. She's so precise, and 5.8% body fat. I'm so proud of the results. And obviously I've seen this before, but just going through it and kind of remembering her journey and how she's achieved this, it's just so badass. It's so cool. So I just have to stop and give her a shout out. And also give a shout out to Create Your Shape and all the ladies who are joining the January class and what they're setting up themselves up to achieve. If you want to join the January class, we start on January 12th. This is for 2025. And you want to get enrolled by the latest January 8th, because that's when we'll be getting started with just the assessment materials and getting things in order to really kick off on January 12th. So this is the program to build muscle, decrease body fat, to get the education behind the strategy and feel just a lot more confident with food, a lot more confident with your body and how to create change. And then systemize it. Systemize your routine so it all runs on autopilot for the long term. So not only can you decrease the body fat or build the muscle, but you can sustain it too. So you can join us. You can go to the link in the show notes or go to jennythenutritionist.com/create-your-shape. This is specifically designed for ladies who are lifting weights and want to look like it. Okay, now let's get into the actual questions. So the first one is around eating before early morning workouts. And so this one actually, she sent me an email about this as she's getting started on some of the materials, and she's joining the January class. So she says, thank you for taking the time to speak with me yesterday. I'm excited to begin. As I was reviewing the materials, I noticed you recommended working out between meals. I work out first thing in the morning around 5:30 or 6 a.m., usually on an empty stomach. How important is it that I eat something prior to working out? I would be open to drinking bone broth or an orange. Let me know your recommendation. All right. This is great because the way that I teach and coach is for you to structure your days and structure your meals around your workout. The reason why this is important, and so yes, to answer the question, yes, it is important and we do want to do it, especially if you are lifting weights and want to build muscle and want to strategically use that food to then be more in a better position to decrease body fat. So the reason why is because of muscle glycogen. So a lot of the food, especially carbs, is going to be stored in your muscle as muscle glycogen. And so when that's available during your workout, think of that as the fuel and the energy for you to physically push harder and to physically contract those muscle fibers, to push harder in the gym and create a stimulus to build muscle. And so that stimulus is required to build muscle. So it's kind of the first domino in that pathway. And so you want that glycogen available for that time, but you also want it not only physically, but also mentally. You will notice a difference. So a lot of times I have ladies who are like really resistant to this, and then likely because they haven't learned how to do it before, and then once they implement it and are consistent with it, they're like, oh, I'm never going back. It makes that big of a difference of just how much enjoyment you get out of the workout too, but really is for the reasons to actually get more out of that workout. So the key thing here though is she's working out early, 5:30, 6 a.m., meaning she does not have a lot of time before that to digest food. So typically you're going to digest a meal in 90 plus minutes with a well-balanced meal, which that's what we want like the majority of the time. But in this scenario, we want primarily to focus on carbs and protein and quicker digesting carbs and protein, meaning they're already broken down to some degree, maybe even like processed, because the goal is to get it in quicker. So we want to reduce any fat, we want to reduce any fiber. So like remove peanut butter, remove like vegetables. We just want quick digesting carbs and protein. So quick digesting carbs, you could be like an orange would work, or orange juice, coconut water, rice cakes, or even like rice cakes with honey on top. Those are like great options because also they're easily available as soon as you wake up. So you could, I suggest starting with one and then adding protein. She said bone broth, which could be an option, but generally protein powder is just going to be very quick to add in different things as well. Like I had I mix just a splash of water with protein powder and a vanilla flavor and put it on top of the rice cake the other day, and it's so good. So other things that you could also do is cream of rice. That's very, very quick to digest. And then things that aren't as quick, but still an option, like if you had more time, let's say 45 minutes, then maybe oatmeal, or toast, or bread of any sort, or pretzels, right? So that's just some ideas that you can work with there. So overall, the answer is yes, it is important, especially at this level. It will make a difference. And then there are some ideas, especially for the super early morning workouters. All right, the next question I got was around hitting your macros versus hitting macro ranges. So here's exactly what she shared. Quick question. I'm doing my weekly check-in. She actually put this in our community, and she said, I'm doing my weekly check-in and I hit 2 out of 3 macros, but maybe I'm 30 grams under on my carbs or in protein. Does that count as hitting my macros, or would you say I did not hit that day? So here's the thing. I suggest, and I'm gonna tell you why, I suggest being within 5 to 10 grams of carbs and protein and within 2 to 5 grams of fat because it's denser. So you need to be within all 3 macros need to be within that for you to consider that, yes, I hit my macros for the day. But I think it's so important to understand why, because I could just tell her that and she'd be like, okay, well, Jenny said to do this, or these are my rules. But instead, of course, I'm explaining it to her because I'm like, it's so important she understands why so she can grasp it and be convicted to do it, but know what happens if she does or doesn't do it. And it just creates the foundation of knowledge that she can continue to build off of. So the reason why this is important is because if, let's say, for example, she's submitting a check-in, she's telling me I'm hitting my macro target 7 out of 7 days per week, but then come to find out that, let's say, she's going over her fat by 30 grams. Let's say, oh, I hit my protein and my carbs, but I'm going over my fat by 30 grams. So then, to do the math, 1 gram of fat equals 9 calories. So if you take 30 grams of fat times 9, that's 270 calories she's going over what she needs per day. So if you take that times 7 days per week, that's like 1,800 calories over what she needs per day on the week. So she will be gaining body fat, maybe a pound per week at that rate, right? So she could be telling me, oh, I'm hitting my macros every day, but really she's actually not. But I'm hitting my macros every day, but then she's gaining a pound every week. I'm like, something doesn't add up there. So we want the data to be a lot more clearer than that. Same thing if you're in a deficit, right? The opposite could be happening where we're expecting her to decrease body fat, but she's not because she's actually going over. And so that is like the reason why that you want to be very close with your macros and not just some or the other, because of course total calories is what we're after, but if we double click down on that, and at this level it matters how much protein your body needs, how much carbs your body needs, how much fat your body needs matters too. And so we want to make sure you're getting the exact amount there too. Now with that, you're probably like, okay, well, Jenny, then why not just be exact on the exact number instead of having these ranges? And so yes, that is the guidance. Like I don't have people memorize the ranges. It's kind of just like a soft buffer on either side, because it is more important to be consistent, very, very close, versus trying to be so rigid that like if you're off 1 gram that you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm off today, and kind of like over analyzing everything. So this way it gives you a little bit of a buffer for, let's say, like having certain foods, or kind of sets you up to not be so obsessive and so like down to the gram, but still gets you close enough to where it doesn't impact you in a negative way if you are within that small range. So that is the answer there on like how to think about hitting macro targets, and then how much can you go over or under, and what kind of like buffer could you give yourself there. And the last question is on digestion and bloating. So this is what she said. I need some guidance. I'm having some bloating/gas, and the funny thing is I never had these issues before I changed my eating habits. The only difference I can come up with is the amount of protein that I'm consuming. I ate dairy and everything else before and had no issues. I'm cutting back on protein bars, but I do still consume protein powder at least once a day. Any advice on how to better deal with this? Should I cut down protein? I need your wisdom. Okay, so this is something that I see a lot, and I think it happens for 2 reasons. The first is we become more in tune with our bodies, so we're more aware when something's off. For example, I remember back in the day, I would have these random nights where my stomach would hurt so bad and I would be super bloated, and it would always be on like some event night or some like fun night, and I'd be like, no, why is this happening now? Well, I've now learned it was because I was having lots of dairy. It would be like ice cream nights or pizza nights, or junk food nights. I'd be having lots of, or going out to dinner where there's just butter and things, lots of dairy that would be causing that. But at the time, I'm like, oh no, it just happens every once in a while, and then I just like wouldn't think about it. And so now I am so much more aware, because I'm so much more in tune with my body. And so I see that a lot with ladies where they've noticed things have shifted because they are just being more observant. However, also, I think in general, digestion issues are increasing kind of as a society because of just so many different reasons. Our environments, our food options, the quality of the soil, like all of these things, the stress. But then also as we age, that also like the compounds of life that have put stress on our hormones, on our stomach linings, on our like digestive system, right? Those also can show up. But that doesn't just mean we just have to deal with it. They're generally causes, something that's causing it or something that's triggering it, and then there's the root cause. So I would first suggest going through this list that I'm about to share and be like, okay, what are some of the triggers? And that's going to help you get to the root cause and then actually solve the root cause. So symptoms normally look like distension of the belly, especially the lower belly, maybe pain, maybe not, and then maybe gas and maybe not. So for her, she had a little bit of both, but didn't seem like pain per se. So I would go through this list that I'm about to share. First is protein powder. So definitely protein bars. I think they are like known to cause digestive issues. They have so much crap in them. I really don't suggest having protein bars in your routine at all. Maybe as like a backup option here and there, but really like not worth it for what you actually get. Then for protein powder, when this can cause digestion issues, if it's not a whey isolate. So ideally, we're having a whey isolate because that's been filtered and a lot of lactose has been removed. If not, then it's usually going to be a whey concentrate or a whey casein, and those generally will cause some digestive issue. And I say generally, I mean a majority of people from what I've seen in the clients I've worked with. So I would check that and make sure you just have a quality protein source and a whey isolate. But then the last thing I would check too is how it's sweetened. So sucralose can be a trigger for many people, and it is unfortunately in a lot of protein powders. So that's something to check too in the ingredients. So what I would do is I would remove your protein powder for 5 days and see if that's a trigger. And then from there, we would know if it is, okay, then we can have a path on how to address it from like the next step. Okay, the next thing is dairy and gluten. So I find that most have a threshold, meaning that you might be able to have some, but then if you go have enough, that's when things start to get triggered and symptoms occur. So for example, like her, maybe she didn't have much dairy or gluten before, but a lot of times when you start working on your shape, you're increasing your protein levels, and to hit your protein, you're like, I'm going to add in cottage cheese, I'm going to add in more Greek yogurt, and so you're just getting more exposed to it, and maybe hit your threshold. Or with gluten, same thing. If you start pushing carbs and now you're at 200 grams of carbs and you're pushing to 300 grams of carbs, and then you're adding in more gluten to hit those goals, then your exposure has increased. So same thing. Another thing that you could test, I would do these all separate so that way it's clear data. Remove it for 5 days and see how your body responds. And then if that is it, then we would want to dig in further to see, okay, what's the root issue there? So all these things that I list out, you're probably going to have an idea of, wait, this one sounds like I have changed this, or this could be it. I'm going to test this. All right, the next one is fiber and FODMAPs. So fiber is great. FODMAPs are great. FODMAPs are like kind of like a type something that's found in vegetables and carbs. Both of them are great and they're healthy, but if we increase too fast, then that may be causing bloating. Or if there's underlying gut imbalances, this could be a trigger for sure. So same thing, I would test removing them for 5 days. And then this one, if you're like, oh my gosh, I feel so much better without vegetables, it's generally telling us, okay, there's underlying gut imbalances, and then you may then want to get like a GI map done and run the 4 R's. There's a whole protocol behind it. Okay, next up would be new medications. This one I think gets like overlooked, or we think they're not connected, but so many medications impact motility, which is the rate of our digestion. And so if something slows down our motility and then food just sitting in our stomach, then you'll likely feel bloated, or then it's interacting with things in our stomach that are creating more bloat and gas. So that's definitely something to just kind of review and consider. Next up is hormone shifts. So estrogen, especially for females, is like the changes in estrogen are correlated with gut issues. And so that is something you want to consider. We're like, okay, were there any changes in my birth control? Were there any changes like in my stress levels or anything else that I can now tell my hormones are swinging or shifting differently? Or in perimenopause, right? Am I noticing that I'm getting symptoms of those swings? And that could be a driver. Again, that tells us the driver, and then we want to look into it more. And then the next is lower stomach acid. And basically, stomach acid gets produced every time we eat to help break down the food. If we are lower in stomach acid, which stress could decrease our stomach acid, overall gut health could decrease our stomach acid, lots of caffeine could decrease our stomach acid, then it slows down through the rest of our intestines, and I'm sorry, it doesn't slow down. The food isn't broken down, but it's going in through the rest of the food where it should be broken down, and that's when it can create some issues or discomfort or imbalances there. So this I find is a big one with protein. So you could test this by reducing protein. And if you reduce protein and you're like, oh, wow, I do, and I reduce it by a lot, maybe like by 50 grams, and you're like, oh, after a couple of days, you're like, oh my gosh, I do feel a lot better, then this would be the next step to look into. Okay, what is the stomach acid doing? And then there are supplements like digestive enzymes and HCl to help increase that stomach acid and to help you break down that food and reduce those symptoms. And or find the root cause of what is causing the lower stomach acid, which leads me to the last one, which is gut imbalances. So generally, this is a root cause of a lot of gut issues, and it could be from chronically low stomach acid or food poisoning, especially if you travel a lot. This has been the story of my life, especially if you travel a lot, or even if you have animals. I had a client once who got a imbalance. Her microbiome was imbalanced from a bug she got from we're assuming from her dog, because she was close to their dog. She hadn't traveled at all. That generally only travels through animals or really unclean, unsanitary areas, which she wasn't in. So that one is kind of the last one. But to know that, kind of like I said, you would get testing done, or all of these symptoms that I just shared could be related to that. Or generally, I find this is when you have a lot stronger symptoms that go beyond just occasional bloating. So I wanted to break this all down. I actually posted this in the group for her and thought this would be a good one to share, because now I can guide her like, hey, here are all of these different things that we want to consider, to give you kind of the big picture of different things that you can tell me, oh, actually, this is what changed. Actually, I didn't think about it, but this is what changed, or I'm going to test this, and then we can know what to do next. But I shared this and thought this would be a good one, because I know a lot of people experience this as well. All right, so that's the final one, bloating and gas. So I hope you enjoyed this Q&A, and if you're somebody who enjoys learning, but you also want to build your shape and you want to learn along with it, and you want the support like this where your questions aren't just answered, but they're actually like thoroughly answered and you are educated along with it to get to the root cause and to really move the needle and understand it, then Create Your Shape and coaching with me is definitely the program for you. We are getting started on January 12th. So in just a few weeks, now is the time to get signed up and join us. And you can do so at the link in the show notes, or you can go to jennythenutritionist.com/create-your-shape. And of course, you can reach out to me if you have any questions, and I also offer consultation calls to discuss it and walk through your specific scenario as well. All right. Have the best Christmas week and enjoy your holidays. And if you are a lady who is lifting weights and want to look like you lift weights, then I'll see you inside the Create Shape program.